Hey everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we're going to be discussing a very fun topic that's going to net me 0 hate comments, because that topic is the Reverse special wasn't as good as you think it was. And honestly, in my opinion, as a professional writer, it was a poor example of writing, but then again, so was the rest of season 5. Yikes. Now, I know between the 3 specials, New York, Shanghai and Reverse, not counting the Christmas or the COVID one, or the environmental one either, Reverse between the 3 of them, the world specials, seems to be the most popular. I have no evidence for that per se, that's just what I think is the case, judging from my comment section and everything I've seen on the hellscape that is Twitter. So I know this video will probably be like an unpopular Miraculous Ladybug opinions video, although we're only discussing one opinion, which is about the Reverse special. It's going to be right up there with me calling the people who liked representation delusional. What a way to start the new year, this is great. So it's totally fine if you disagree with me, but please wait a second. For the Reverse stans who would go to war to protect this special, if you are an aspiring writer, please do not use the Reverse special as a good example of writing to like model yours off, and especially not if you want to write science fiction. And it being science fiction is kind of where most of my problems with the Reverse special lies. So if you didn't know, I am currently finishing off a PhD that is in part about science fiction. So I know a lot about science fiction just in general, like the genre in general, but the PhD was also a creative writing PhD, so I also know a lot about writing for the genre in general. And to me, this was a science fiction special. Now I know before everyone says it, no, Miraculous Ladybug is not science fiction, it is fantasy, and yes, there is a difference, but this special was like a science fiction special. It is firmly that. I will not take any constructive criticism on that. It was a science fiction special because of the presence of alternate universes. Now, could you argue that alternate universes don't necessarily mean something in science fiction? Yes, absolutely. For example, I would argue Discworld, which also uses alternate universes, is fantasy rather than science fiction. We could argue back and forth all day about it, but to me the Reverse special was very much a science fiction special. Either way, there is one rule you should always follow when you write science fiction, and it should be present in other genres too, especially fantasy, but like literally every other genre apart from memoir, I'd say, but especially for science fiction. And for someone who only listens to 3 rules in order to write, I actively ignore the rest. This is like only 3 rules I listen to, so this rule is very important, okay? I don't like following the rules, so this is a big deal. But the rule is show, don't tell. And it is largely absent from the Reverse special. It crops up a couple of times, which I'll talk about in a minute, but nowhere near enough for a science fiction special would need. So before we go and talk about what it looks like, or rather doesn't look like in the Reverse special, let's quickly talk about what it is in case some of you don't write and you've never heard of this and you don't know what it is, because not everyone will know what it is. So show, don't tell. Let's use a quick made-up example. So character A is upset, and you could very easily have character A say, "Oh, I've just been crying." So you know, the reader, the viewer, whoever, they know immediately that character is upset because they've just told me they've been crying. You've been told. But that's not very satisfying or interesting. So instead, let's show it. So character B comes up to character A, and instead of character A saying, "Hey, I've just been crying," character A says nothing. Instead, character B notices that they have tears in their eyes. Maybe their eyes are bloodshot because of how much they've been crying. Obviously, how upset they are would depend on the situation that upset them. If that character is wearing makeup, maybe there's streaks in their foundation or their mascara's running. There are more things we could use to show that they've been crying, but already that shows you. Character A has been crying and that they are upset. You've got the signs, you've been shown that they are upset. So both those signs and character A saying, "I've been crying," communicate the same thing, that they're upset. But showing that character A has been crying is much better than character A just telling you that they've been crying to communicate that they're upset. So the same thing is kind of often done in Miraculous, where they tell you instead of show you. So for example, Marinette found out that Gabriel Bays was Monarch Daddy because she was told by Felix. And that's extremely unsatisfying and boring. So where possible, you should show where you can. Of course, there are going to be times when you can't do this. Sometimes the reader or the viewer or whoever is going to have to be told the information. But where possible, especially in science fiction and fantasy stories, you should always show it over telling it. But also just a writing tip in general, show, don't tell. So now we're on the same page, we all know what it is. Why is this so important for writing science fiction? The genre of science fiction relies on immersion and escapism, and without them, the genre is really nothing other than a commentary on our society if you can't convince your reader or viewer, in the case of Miraculous Ladybug, that this is really happening. And it's all well and good having a really interesting commentary about society set in this fictional world or an alternate version of our world, but it's gonna mean absolutely nothing if you can't immerse your reader or your viewer within that world. And since going back and rewatching the special, I'm not convinced by the immersion of it at all, because we are told everything that's different about this other world instead of being shown it. Gerald argues that science fiction is a postulation of an alternative reality from which to contemplate this one, but the reverse special wasn't set in an alternate reality, it was set in normal Paris, not reverse Paris. Now, I understand before anyone says that it was set in the normal Paris we get in the show, that this was probably done to save money since we got quite a few number of character models for the reverse special. But so did the New York special and the Shanghai special. Now I've since found out that the New York special apparently reuses all like the sets or the backgrounds, whatever they're actually called, from Ghost Force, which I believe is set in New York. I'm not actually sure this since I haven't actually watched it yet. I am going to watch it. Okay. I will watch it, just not yet, okay? But as far as I'm aware, Zag currently doesn't have a show at the moment anyway of making this video set in Shanghai. So I would assume all the sets for the Shanghai special were made especially for the Shanghai special. Now, I'm under no pretense that making new sets for a reverse special that was set in the reverse would be inexpensive. However, the New York special set in New York, Shanghai special set in Shanghai, reverse special set in normal Paris, not reverse Paris. So either they're setting a new precedent in that the new characters from each world special will visit Paris for their adventure. So is it like Miss Rose, who's meant to be from England, is she gonna come to Paris for her special? I think Lady Butterfly from Rio, somewhere else in Brazil maybe, is coming to Paris for her special. How's it gonna go? I really don't know. That would make it cheaper, where they just have to do character models instead of character models and backgrounds, but it's definitely odd. And in my opinion, the reverse special should have been set in the reverse in order to tell the story more effectively, which is why you need show, don't tell. Without the use of show, don't tell, which is very much absent in the reverse special, it does become really, really ineffective storytelling. But let's just pretend that Zag are in a really tough financial situation. I don't know, I don't work for them. I've no idea what their financial situation is looking like, but let's just say they are, and Zag didn't have enough money to pay for new backgrounds, hence why it's set in normal Paris. It still should have been immersive, but all the telling makes it not, and immersion is what separates good science fiction from really, really bad science fiction. Holstock claims that science fiction is a form of contemporary metaphor, a literary device for examining our world and lives from another perspective. But any other perspective is lost when we're just told the information. We need to feel it or to be immersed. There are some really good examples of telling instead of showing in the special, or another way to say it, as I said before, ineffective storytelling. So the first instance is during the sewers scene. So Marina and Adrian are in their normal wall between us kind of moment, having de-transformed, and reverse Gabriel Babes is hiding around the corner. And he tells them what kind of world he was from, what it was like. So do we know what this other world was like? Yes, absolutely. Am I immersed? No, absolutely not. The whole time I was watching the special, I was like, okay, so now show me. You've told me, show me, because I'm not immersed. Can I imagine this other world? Yes, but I'm not immersed in it because I haven't been shown it, I've been told it. It means next to nothing with Gabriel just saying it. Even if it was through a flashback, that would have been more effective. Like, they could have done a voiceover over the flashback. That would have been so much more effective. And honestly, in my opinion, did it even need to be like full on 3D modelling. I was more than satisfied. If you remember at the end of Recreation, after Gabriel has the butterfly taken off him and he tells her about Emily and kind of what happened there, and it was just like sketch drawings. I was more than happy with that. I didn't care it wasn't 3D. It didn't need to be something elaborate. All they needed to do was show the viewer. And I also believe that the sewers scene is the first time that Marinette and Adrien, and also us the viewer, learn about the Supreme. And again, same problem there. I'm not immersed. I don't really care. Show us the danger. Show us the stakes. The Supreme sounds about as threatening as my 3-year-old nephew because I don't know what he's done to Paris. I haven't been shown it. I don't know what else he's done. I don't know what he's like as a person. There are no stakes associated with it because he doesn't even seem that bad, to be honest. Honestly, he just sounds like a mildly bad Miracle Box Guardian who doesn't really treat the people using the Miraculous very well. There's no stakes associated with him because I haven't been shown him and what he's done to the Reverse Paris. And the second bad example of show don't tell is the diary scenes. So Shadybug is reading Marinette's diary, which, by the way, why at no point does other Marinette recognise the room as hers? I would assume, because I don't know, I haven't been shown it, so I don't know, that her room looks similar and it's maybe in a similar layout, but at no point she's like, oh, this is my room, but different. I don't get it. Anyway, so she's reading the diary, and when there's a difference, Shadybug just says, oh, that's different, and here's why it's different. She tells us. She needs to show us. It would be so much more effective if this whole special was done in the reverse, which I've said before, but let's pretend they didn't have enough money for it, so give it us in a flashback. But no, we're just told what her life is like. However, there are 2 examples where they really did try and bring the show don't tell, and I was like, oh my god, why didn't you just do more of that? They had the grounds to make it so effective, because there's that part with Sabine. Our Marinette doesn't shout at her mum. Reverse Marinette does. So it's starting to show us, without telling us, how different these 2 girls are. Even though they look the same, they both use a Ladybug Miraculous. I'm sure there are other similarities as well between them, but I don't know because I haven't been shown them. But it shows just how different they are and their different relationships with their mum. So they know how to do it, they know how to show it. The other example is with the Reverse Adriennette in the one and only flashback we do get. Nothing is said by Adrien or by Marinette or by the bodyguard in that scene, but we all knew as soon as we saw this scene that Reverse Adrien has a crush on Reverse Marinette because of how he looks at her. They showed how he feels without having to say a single thing, without having to tell us. So they can do it, but they choose not to. It's lazy writing that results in ineffective storytelling and poor immersion. Like I said before, while show don't tell is needed for all forms of writing other than memoir, it is absolutely needed for science fiction. Those instances with other Marinette and Sabine and the Adriennette flashback were the only 2 times in the whole special that I was personally immersed. And due to this absolute lack of show don't tell, there were no stakes in this special. When you're told things overshown over and over again, it becomes unsatisfying and viewers just don't care. I think a large part of the reason why people like the special so much is because it's different with the evil Ladybug and Cat Noir and then a good Hawk Daddy, and don't get me wrong, I like that too. The overall concept of the reverse, absolutely love. But their story or the stories in it just aren't executed effectively due to the almost absence of show don't tell. But most people aren't aware that's what's missing from the special and just seem to like it because of Shadybug and Clone Noir rather than because it's a good example of writing, in my opinion. If you like the Reverse special, let me know, what exactly do you like about it? Because in my opinion, this special did have the absolute potential to be amazing. But honestly, I'm kind of done with the Reverse special. I don't want to watch it again for a while, and I absolutely love Miraculous, but the lack of show don't tell in the special makes for really, really poor storytelling. In my opinion, the New York special and the Shanghai special are both amazing, partly because the New York and Shanghai specials are set in New York and Shanghai, and they are so much more immersive, first of all, from that, but we also shown what these worlds are like. So for example, in New York, the way the heroes are allowed to like roam around freely, identities isn't an issue, everyone kind of knows who everyone else is. We are shown what it's like before Marinette and Adrien and the viewer are told what it's like. The same again in Shanghai with Faye. Shanghai, to my knowledge, is a really prosperous city, yet Faye is homeless, and we see the world that she lives in, that what she inhabits. Through her eyes, she has to steal off Marinette in order to survive, things like that, but we are shown it instead of being told it. And that's not the case in the Reverse special. We're told pretty much everything apart from Reverse Marinette has a bad relationship with her mum and Reverse Adrian has a crush on Reverse Marinette. That's about it, and otherwise it's kind of boring because of the lack of show don't tell. And it's also just bizarre because surely Ladybug and Cat Noir could do so much more good in the actual Reverse if they actually travelled to the actual Reverse, because, you know, don't get me wrong, Shadybug and Claw Noir are definitely a problem. I'm not pretending they're not a problem with the way they act at the start of the special, but it also sounds there are a hell of a lot more problems in the other actual universe that they could help with too. It seems, up until the end of the special anyway, that Gabriel is the only good Miraculous holder, so assuming the Supreme, who I'm assuming is either Master Fu or Suhan, has handed out all Miraculouses and they're all also evil, surely Ladybug and Cat Noir would be of a bigger help in the actual Reverse instead of fighting two people from the Reverse in their universe. But again, I'm not even sure if that's a fair statement to make because we're not even shown what this other world looks like, so I don't know. This is where the problem lies. I don't know because of the lack of show don't tell. There are other problems with the Reverse special too, with Tiki knowing about parallel universes. The thing is, Tiki, if parallel universes do indeed exist in our world, or I guess not our world, but if they do exist, no one's actually supposed to know about them, so Tiki wouldn't know about them either. Another major problem is that Marinette towards the end is like, oh my god, I don't have a plan to take down Shadybug and Claw Noir, and then 0.5 seconds later she tells everyone her amazing plan, so that was a bit weird. Overall, I do think what the Reverse special gave us was good. I really love the parallel scenes at the end with Ladybug and Shadybug and then Cat Noir and Claw Noir and how they changed, the conversations they had. Thought those were very effective and really well done with the emotions in them. And I do kind of get why people like it. I think it's due to the concept of it and everyone having a crush on Shadybug and or Claw Noir. But it had the potential to be so much better than it was if they implemented the most basic writing rule of show don't tell, which really should be present in everything. Especially science fiction, and in my opinion it's the weakest of all of the world specials, and it's pretty clear they don't have a writer who has ever written science fiction on their team, or ever written science fiction to a good degree on their team. Science fiction isn't something you can just try like other forms of writing. Like, this video is not meant to discourage anyone who wants to write, especially write science fiction. If you want to write science fiction, you should totally go for it. But if you are going to write science fiction, you're more than likely, unless you've read a lot of science fiction before, you are more than likely not going to get it right the first time. It does require a lot of practice and a lot of research, and the majority of writers will never be good at it because it is a tricky genre to get a hold of, to be honest. So if they ever do anything like this again, please get somebody on the team who knows what they're doing. It's a really tricky genre to write for, I get it, but to me I'm like, if you can't do it well, just don't do it. You know, like, no, don't bother. If you're not gonna do a good job, just don't do it in the first place. So anyway, besties, those are my thoughts on the Reverse special. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's awful. It definitely has some redeeming qualities to it. There are far worse episodes out there, like Representation, like Derision. You know, those aren't great episodes either. It's definitely better than Representation and Derision. It's not the worst thing out there. When I say it's the worst of all the three specials, it's not the worst episode of Miraculous we've ever got before. But anyway, besties, I'd love to know what you think. Oh, there's a cat. Hello. Anyway, besties, I'd love to know what you think, especially if you like the Reverse special. What do you think about my thoughts? Do you all hate me now? I'd love to know, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!